Well, hello, both of you.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are
Good,
you?
how are you?
I'm doing fine. It's great to officially meet you.
I know it's been a while. Yeah, I think you joined right when he was leaving. Am I correct?
I think so. Yeah, my first official day was February 3rd.
Yes. So
Of this,
that was
of
when
this
he
current
came.
year we're in.
Yep. And his birthday was on February 5th. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've heard a lot of great things, not only about Jack, but yourselves. I'd like
Well,
to hear more about
Crossroads, I will say, has been a lifesaver for us, without a doubt.
Yeah.
He joined when he never even made it to the public school kindergarten. He made it, he went to Crossroads from the get-go, and way back when they were in Sudbury, and he's stayed there ever since. And honestly, I couldn't imagine that we were ever going to have to leave. It wasn't a happy departure, that's for sure. It was,
Okay.
It's tough out there, and I'm sure you're aware, like the adult services world is just a different ballgame.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear more about Jack's current experience with adult services. But before that, I'd love to hear more about, some of your specific experiences with Crossroads. It's interesting from my perspective because, in some days it feels like I've been here forever, but it's only been 10 months. And so there's a lot for me to learn. And this is one great way for me to learn.
Right. Well, so the first thing I will say, and we've said this before, and I think anyone that listens to this that's been at Crossroads will probably be sick of me saying it, but at one point, administration was upstairs at Crossroads and the kids were downstairs. And so we always said we didn't care what was happening upstairs. There was turnover, there was people being let go, there was new directors. It didn't matter. Downstairs where Jack was, the services were top notch, day in and day out. You would never have known that there was chaos at the administrative level. And they were, go ahead, sorry.
I would say that's been, from day one, it's been a constant that the staff have been fantastic. Teachers, everyone working with the kids, regardless of what else was going on.
That's great.
And I can only imagine what it must have been like for them to know the chaos that might have been happening elsewhere and still manage to give the best services to the kids. So I think for us, that has always been the biggest selling point. Those people that are working directly with the kids their hearts are endless. I mean, it's amazing. And I work in a public school, so I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a special ed teacher, and so I
Yeah.
know, but I get to work, just the public schools calendar, and then I get paid extra to teach in the summer. And yet everyone at Crossroads, they're there year round by choice. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just a whole different level of dedication. And so I think for us, it's just always been the staff, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I echo that. I mean, there's no doubt that that's what drives this mission is our staff who work directly with the kids. Yeah, undoubtedly. And
then since then, the chaos has died down, thankfully. There have not been there's nothing sketchy going on any longer. Everything's above board.
I surely hope so.
Right? Yeah. And even before you, I will say that had changed.
Yep.
You've got some incredible administrators now that I feel like have always had the kids' best interest at heart as well. I think of like Kevin. Kevin has been at Crossroads almost as long as Jack had been there. Ryan Hand, she walked us through every step of adult services. We have Brandon through home services. Yep. So I don't want to leave anyone. I almost shouldn't name names because I don't think I could do it justice.
There's been too many over the years.
Yeah, anyone that has crossed paths with Jack has made a difference in his life and our lives. So,
what do you think the biggest single ingredient of Crossroads that stuck out to you over the years that made the biggest difference for Jack?
For me personally, it's always been they love the kids like we love the kids. And it's not, honestly, like you could be the best at ABA. And Jack was diagnosed when he was about 16 months old. Yeah. And so he was one of those kids that had services literally 30 hours a week. And he was only 18 months old. I would literally have to wake him up in the morning. We had breakfast home services. And then we had a very well-known ABA program coming to the house. They were awful. They only cared about their statistics and how the data looked. They had no connection to Jack. To me, honestly, love him is more important. That I want him to feel comfortable and know that he's cared for.
I think at Crossroads, we always felt we were all part of the family. You know, the staff felt they were like part of the family, and they always gave us the impression that they not only were there to teach Jack, but they also really loved Jack. So, and it, like I said, and that has been, name your staff member over the years, you know, current, you know, former students, I mean, former teachers, present, you name it, they've all been fantastic.
And that's not to like underlie the fact that like they're amazing at ABA and they're amazing at their jobs, because they also are that. But I think knowing that my son, who could not communicate, was happy made all the difference in the world. He went off to school happy in the morning, and he came home happy in the afternoon. Now, did he have his moments in between? Of course he did. You guys used to make him use the treadmill. I mean, that was just torture. I don't really feel like that's Jack's fault. None of us want to do the treadmill, but he really, like, he was just loved.
That's
and
great.
You can't train that. That's not something anyone learned in school.
No, that isn't. Yeah, that isn't something that we give out as training. That's for sure.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah. And so right now, Jack's receiving adult services.
Yes.
And through what provider?
Where he's at the Price Center in.
Okay. Yep.
So I will say, when, I don't know, he was 18 or 19, we were at a meeting at Crossroads, and I think it was the woman from DDS who said, you know, just to forewarn you, like, you're in for a rude awakening of what lies ahead. Don't for a second think that you're going to see anything close to what you have here. And of course, we kind of were like, yeah, funny. She was not joking, and Ryan can attest to it. Poor Ryan, I think I'm still holding a grudge against her because she didn't somehow figure out how Jack could stay at Crossroads. I know it's totally irrational, and I love Ryan, but we looked at 24, 25. We went, I mean, when I tell you,
at least 25 places.
Yeah, we went.
Wow.
Sorry for the dogs in the background.
That's okay.
That's real life, right? So we went to several places to look. We actually went. We went to a couple of places repeatedly, trying to convince ourselves that they would be acceptable for Jack. So this is what we saw. We would go in, it would be one big room, and there would be a range of ages and disabilities, pretty much from 22 up to maybe 70-ish, 65-ish. Many that were not mobile. And I actually felt like it wasn't a fit for Jack, but I also felt like he wasn't going to be a fit for those people. Like, if he goes in there bouncing and skipping and flapping and make some of those, like, 65-year-old people, they're not going to want to experience that either. It's really sad what is out there. I will say we had a place picked out. We thought we were good to go. And then right around Christmas, so about a month, 6 weeks before what would have been his transition, they rejected us. And we had never even heard that was a thing. Like, we didn't know. We just assumed if you have openings and we apply, we'd get in.
Sure.
They led us on, and it was really pretty traumatic. Like, I feel like
we were actually going to move because
it was not
in our immediate area.
Right. Like, I was going to leave my job. We were going to sell the house, move to a new house. I mean, everything. I do believe everything happens for a reason. I think where he ended up was better than where we were going to go to. Good. But at the time, we hadn't seen this particular place. The ironic thing about the place that he is actually at, we had visited twice, but for whatever reason, both times we went to what we call, again, the downstairs program. And then there was like a much higher program that was somewhere upstairs. And he clearly wasn't a fit. But what someone neglected to tell us, that there was a middle program. And so the first time we went, I don't think nobody was upstairs, so we couldn't see anything. They just kind of talked about this thing. So again, being desperate, 6 weeks left, we went back to this other place again. And he's like, well, let me see if maybe they're upstairs. And we walked upstairs, and there was 20 Jacks sitting around a table. It was mind blowing, wasn't it? It was the first time we'd seen a program that looked like it fit Jack.
The one thing that I noticed when we were visiting all these places is there was not a large autism population. There was a variety of different disabilities, but there was a lot of Downs. There was a lot of mental and physical handicaps, but I didn't see a lot of autism. I don't know where those guys went after they turned 22, but we didn't run into a lot of them, which was interesting because I was expecting the opposite.
And a lot of what we did see was kids, well, they're not kids, adults sitting around tables. They were literally sitting at tables. They were on their phones as well. A couple of places you couldn't tell staff from client because everybody was on a device. And I thought, like, they could see us. It's not like we were behind a two-way mirror.
I believe the phrase we used after leaving many tours was dumpster fire. There was a lot of, it's sad, there was a lot of horrible.
I cried many times leaving, not for us, because I knew I would never send them there, but I cried for those kids or adults that were there. And I'm sure their families love and care just as much, but you get to a point and you say, what am I going to do? I mean, we made a joke that we would live in a tiny house. I'd sell the house and I'll stay home and be his person. So he was able to go to this program now he made it a month and a half before COVID hit. So unfortunately, it's out of whatever the zone is. So we had to like pretty much give up any rights to any services in order to get transportation, because we both work, so we couldn't drive him. So we gave up all home hours to do that. And then when COVID hit, we were kind of like, all right, now we're back to square one. And even the transportation situation, they won't commit to it being the same person. They won't commit to telling us who it's going to be in advance.
Okay.
So it is not a special ed transportation company. It is just a livery service. And most often we would have the same person. And where English was not his first language, and Jack is not very clear, we were very worried about I wrote up a whole thing explaining, like, when he does this, try to say this word, so that was, by the time COVID hit, we still were not comfortable with this transportation. And I don't know how we get to that point. We tried to talk to another parent that is driving their child that lives like 2 towns over, because they wanted transportation. So we were hoping to pool resources.
Sure.
And DDS was very angry with us for meddling in somebody else's business. So we stopped that. It's a very weird, it's a be thankful for what you can, for the scraps we give you. So he's been home, and I got to be honest with you, we love it.
Yeah, if I knew I was going to be able to work from home for the rest of the time, I think I would switch. And
we do self-directed. Yeah. So we weren't sure what self-directed would look like.
Oh,
sometimes
okay.
He would have trouble like on a long weekend being home, but he has adjusted remarkably well to being home. I'm back at work, so John is fully in charge during the week. So I imagine it's probably not as smooth as I think it is, but I was home from March through August, and he's just been great. Like we as long as we put it on his choice work schedule, we put, like, if we put on there that you're taking a shower, you're going for a walk, he does it. So we just had to learn. I always said in the beginning of COVID, we actually became the best autism parents I think we'd ever been, because we had the time to just focus on that. And he's just been a peach. It's been really sweet having him home. I have to admit, I can't believe it took us 22 years to realize, like, that all that rat race that we had him on, maybe, it isn't the way he has to continue.
That's really interesting. I'm really so happy to hear that for the three of you, for sure. Absolutely. Do you think that's something you'll continue with once COVID's in our rear view window a bit?
Well, so we both have to work. So that's the problem. We don't have that luxury. So right now John is home, and they have not been told they have to go back yet. Once he has to go back, I think we'll have to figure something out.
Yeah, we don't know what that's going to look like yet. I wish we had some definitive answers, but they keep playing it. Every other month they review it. And I mean, I don't think I'll be going back within the next 6 months, but there's no guarantees that I'd be able to continue 5 days from home.
We are continuing to keep him engaged with the Price Center. He does their Zoom calls, even if it's something. Unfortunately, let me rephrase that. Some of the kids are much higher functioning than Jack, so they do a lot of things that on a Zoom call are just over his head. But he is engaged enough to watch it. So we just pull it up on his iPad, and sometimes he participates, sometimes he just watches the other kids do stuff. But we want to make sure we stay active with them as well. And they never told us that they weren't getting funding if he didn't connect to their Zoom calls. So we felt awful. We were like, oh, well, we'll join. Even if we can't participate, we can join. Right. So I feel like, and they're going to start doing some home services, I think. Yeah. Too.
And he's had Georgia from Crossroads here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 3 hours a day.
Well, Carla's been coming.
And Carla's been coming at night, but during the day, that gives me a little bit of a break to work, and he's staying engaged. So that's been helpful.
That's I'm glad to hear that, at least, for sure. My understanding is that you've been proponents of Crossroads becoming an adult service provider for at least a few years.
That is my greatest wish, that if that could ever happen.
And if that does happen and Jack is not client number one, watch out for her.
Will rain out.
No threats.
I'm
no
only
threats.
Kidding. I even in my own delusional brain, I can recognize that you will have students there ready to transition that will probably go first. But.
Yeah, I will be honest with you. I was so surprised learning more about Crossroads during my recruitment process and eventual selection and hire that they weren't an adult service provider. That was really surprising to me. I know they had been talking about it. That's my understanding for a while, but they never pulled the trigger.
We actually came up for a meeting probably when he was 20, 21, and about this, and had a meeting with your predecessor and a few other people to say, what would it take to have to happen? I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like I was like, I'll quit my job, I'll work, I'll figure it out, like I'll help.
I think what it sounded like it came down to was finances. The funding for the adult programming is not as good as the funding is for, from the Department of Ed or however that it all works. And
they didn't want to drain one.
Yeah, I think at the time they didn't want to take from one to fund the other, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or at least that was how it was verbalized to us.
The funding is different. There's no question about that. However, it's okay to have a different funding stream supporting different programs if you have a larger organizational net. And so I firmly envision that we'll be an adult service provider within the next year.
Did you say year?
Oh yeah.
We're interested.
Okay, so where's the application? Is it online?
No, it's, my previous employer was Department of Developmental Services.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, that clearly helps matters a bunch.
Yep. So that's good. So because I'm not going to lie, we have even looked into like, what would it take for us to start something? And it obviously is overwhelming. It's like starting a school and although I will say I was at Crossroads when it was going through the approval process, so I am familiar with it, but, and our oldest daughter is also a special ed teacher, and she says the same thing. She's like, come on, Mom, we can do it. We'll figure something out for Jack. And I'm like, I know, I wish, but if that would be amazing. And we'd be your biggest advocates if something like that was to happen. Yeah. I think you'd have a lot of your former students probably wanting to come back because I do keep in touch with some of the parents, and we're all kind of facing the same thing,
Sure.
And I could tell you, in our search, we drove from the tip of the Cape to
some places like 2 hours.
God's, and an hour, 2 hours in the other direction, looking at places, and it's
not. There's nothing around.
Right. I know there's nothing. There never has been anything in our area. He's always traveled.
There's clearly a need. The need is there, and it's not going away anytime soon. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be amazing. I would even, like I said, I'd volunteer to help out with any of the dirty work in the beginning to get it started, paperwork, you name it.
We may take you up on that.
I'd do it. When I first came to Crossroads, I was not a special ed teacher. I worked I worked where he worked, actually. We worked at the same company. And then I ended up going back to school and to get my teaching certificate in special education. So
that's a phenomenal. What district?
King Philip. So it's a regional school district. It's Norfolk, Plainville, and Rentham.
Okay.
And our numbers are spiking, so they just made us go remote. Yes, last night. So we're remote today and tomorrow. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that's going to be the roller coaster ride for the next few months, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I did ask, I said, because we've got, you know, our students have been in since September, even though the school itself had been remote. But so last night and today, our kids are not in, and we all emailed today and said, can we at least pick a few kids that really need to come in? Because you know what it's like. It's difficult for them to be at home. And I mean, between mental health and just all the different situations, like it's awful. It's awful for the families. I really do. And my heart breaks for a lot of these kids too.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we've encountered the same thing here over the past, 8 months, having to go fully remote. And now we're in this hybrid model, and we have plans and designs to be fully in person February 1st. We have our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We hope to do so. We're making every arrangement to try to make that possible.
Hopefully by then we're kind of coming around it a little bit. So
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for all of us.
Yeah,
I agree.
For sure. What else can you tell me about your experiences at Crossroads over the years that would be, I'm being selfish here, that would be helpful
No,
for
that's fine.
my own learning experience?
I think one of the funniest things is they told us one day we were at an IEP meeting and they were talking about him riding his bike. And John and I looked at each other and we're like, Jack doesn't ride a bike. They're like, oh no, he does. I'm like, no, he doesn't. We went home that night. We're like, they are so full of it. Like, do they think we're not going to figure out that they're running? So don't they send us a video the next day of him riding a bike? So that was the first year that Crossroads did their 5K. And I actually said, if Crossroads can teach Jack to ride a bike, I can run my first 5K. And since then, I've actually been running. So I guess it was a good thing all around because I was never a runner. But it's just funny, like they're doing things like not to impress anybody. They're doing it for the kids. And like nobody was like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Like it was just part of their APE class. And sure enough, just kind of came up casually in conversation. So I think it's the stuff like that. And for me personally, I know they never gave up. They still he was at 21 and a half years old. They're like, you know what? We think we're going to try this. They never wrote it off like he's almost done.
Right.
You know?
That's great. No, that's so sweet to hear. That's really sweet music to my ears for sure.
Yeah. Crossroads has made me cry in more positive ways than I ever expected. It's like whenever they did those talent shows, I know how much work it was, but man, those were the funniest days ever. Like my cheeks always hurt so much from smiling those days. All the kids.
Yeah, they always seem to go the extra mile.
Yeah, yeah. Open house at night. Crazy how much work they put into that open house.
Yeah, I only know from what I hear. Having been here almost a year now, it'll be a year in February. I haven't experienced any of that yet. Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to the day where I can experience, all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
They're consistent, they're empathetic. And I also think they treat the parents with a lot of respect. I think at one point this was probably how long ago? So 18 years ago, maybe, like literally they had asked, what is it like as a parent? Because they wanted to share it with the staff. Because I can say in my own school, I hear they'll be like, why don't the parents just do this? And I always say to them, you don't have a clue what it's like to be the parent. So I thought it was great that Crossroads actually cared to hear what it's like to be.
Yeah, early on with autism, we would get a lot of feedback from people that were working with him that just do this, just do that. And that's not the reality for when you're living at home because you're trying to run a house and take care of your other kids and cook meals and work. So it's not easy to run your life like clinical trials or ABA. And Crossroads figured that out early on, that they have to approach that differently. And that was nice to see. That they understood that what works at school doesn't necessarily apply to home.
Sure, absolutely.
They actually made it a staff training so that the staff could hear this is what it's really like to be a parent.
No, that's really great to hear. I'm not surprised given my experience thus far, but it's really great to hear from folks who were, literally in the trenches.
Yeah, and any parent that's ever asked me about it, I always highly recommend it. I would say, go check it out. You're crazy not to look at Crossroads. One of the kids at one of the we have a lovely woman that used to babysit before COVID with Jack in the afternoon. She used to get him off the bus, and she watched another young boy from a different town, and he's at Crossroads now, because that, she would go back and say, well, the Anderson said this. So then the mother eventually looked into it. So I think word of mouth is probably really important for Crossroads, because I know you hear about NEC and you hear about May, because they have the legacy for how many years, but none of those compare, because they don't have that family connection and that everybody there loves the kids. You don't see that at the May Center. You don't see it at NEC. We've been to both.
Yeah, we've looked at them all at one point or another over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I see.
And we never saw anything that would make us want to leave.
That's really high praise.
Mm-hmm.
That's really high praise. Absolutely.
I think some places just have a reputation and then they keep it because no one challenges it, and I hate that. You know what I mean? Like, just because you might have been cutting edge, or you may have introduced something 30 years ago, unfortunately they have that tunnel vision. It was NEC that was doing that. They were like the ones that like just drilled him. He was a 1.5-year-old, and they just treated him like, it was awful. It was awful to watch how they worked with him. And I thought, like, you do realize he's still a baby. Like, he's only 1.5 years old. So that was hard.
And that was back when, there's not going to be eye contact and,
right.
And, and this and that. And it couldn't be anything further from the truth.
Right.
I see.
He's very loving, very affectionate, and is very good with eye contact. So
his video was phenomenal.
Well, I didn't know. I thought she wanted a video. I didn't know she just wanted a picture. So I was like, oh, yeah, he loves that. He plays that song a lot. So he's actually just sitting beyond the doors right now, listening to his iPad. I'm surprised how quiet he is. He must know what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
So
can't be bothered, huh?
Yeah, no.
Any words of advice for me? You've been around the block here at Crossroads. Crossroads. Any words of advice?
Stay true to being honest with the parents, and just being compassionate. Do what's right. I feel like we just think that's where Crossroads had gone wrong in the past. They got a little off track every so often. Again, never the staff, never the teachers and whatnot.
I would say that was in the first the first 10 years of Crossroads.
I see.
The leadership was not pretty.
Okay.
I think probably starting with Tony, things.
Even a little bit before that, things had started.
There was a little trouble here and there, but I think it's been the last half of Crossroads that things have normalized at the top, which is nice.
And I will say, I think your parents are your biggest asset.
Absolutely. No question.
Your parents are your second biggest asset. Obviously, your teachers are your biggest asset. But then, when I'm still on all the Facebook groups and everything, and some of those parents, how hard they work on behalf of Crossroads, I've been amazed, their dedication. And so them and ourselves, still word of mouth, it's going to help you continue. You want to expand into prior to school age kids, you're going to go into adulthood. I think just staying true to the compassionate, empathetic treatment of kids will get you everywhere. You'll have parents that will go to the ends of the earth for you.
I've experienced it already.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, have experienced it already. Yeah, absolutely. Even in these really unprecedented times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Absolutely, it was great meeting both of you.
Yeah.
Again, I've heard so much about both of you and Jack. It was great to.
You can believe all the good stuff you heard about Jack. Most of what you probably heard about us is false.
Jack was the mayor there for quite a few years.
Yeah, Jack's. We're lucky, that's for sure.
Yeah. And we'll definitely be interested in hearing more about
okay
any adult programming that you have.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't kidding. If I have to, I don't have to be in the public schools anymore. I'll be happy to switch jobs.
Absolutely good to know. Absolutely.
There's no conflict of interest there.
I don't see any.
I don't either.
Thank you for taking the time today. I really.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you.
Let's do it again.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds great. Have a good day. Tell Jack I said hi.
All right, we'll do.